Okay, so when you first start working with me, what I love to do with business owners is sit down and go over their targets. And these are basically your goals. Again, what do you want out of your business? What are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And we look at targets on 12 key profit and cash flow drivers. So we kind of just go through that list and say, ideally and realistically, where would you like to be? So that's number one. And then I take your actuals. So I'll need access to your QuickBooks, or I will need a specific amount of data. Usually, I go back 2 years on your profit and loss and your balance sheet. I take all of that data so we can start seeing trends and we can kind of just see where you're at. And ideally, I want to bring that up to your last month. So we'll take 2 months from the last month of close. Basically, this you don't have to be involved in this as long as I have the access and the reports I need. You sit back, relax. I look over everything. As I'm looking over this data, I'm looking for anything that might stick out, something that may not look right. But overall, I'm it adding all that data into what I would call your workbook, which is kind of where we work from, and kind of just seeing where you're at. And then from there, I will create a forecast. So a forecast is basically the trends, what I see happening in your business. And typically, I like to work from your past 6 months. So it's going to give you the most up to date, recent thing as to what's really happening in your business. And by creating a forecast, it will start seeing trends throughout your business. I also will take into consideration on your forecast what we talked about in your targets. What do you see coming down in the future? What, are you getting ready to buy something? Have you just brought on a staff member that's only been there for a month, or do you see yourself adding someone in the next month or two? I'm going to incorporate that into your forecast so we can get as close to kind of that crystal ball of what we can expect in the future as possible. And then after the forecast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these three factors, which is your targets, your actuals, and your forecast. So your targets are your goals, your actuals is reality, what really just happened, and then your forecast is kind of what is trending. And this is again going back to those 12 key profit and cash flow drivers. And I set a score and I make the score really simple. It's either a red light, a yellow light, or a green light. And I evaluate each of those 12 factors. And some are going to be green, some are going to be yellow, and some are going to be red. But the main ones we want to focus on are the red. And ideally, I don't want to give you 5 to 6 red scores. That's not going to do anyone any good. We're going to take the top 2 or 3 and we're going to work on those. And then we're going to keep our eye on those yellow ones, and those green ones, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing in those items. So after I set the score, then we'll meet and we'll look at those red items and we'll create objectives and figure out, okay, how can we start turning this in the right direction? And based on those objectives, then we will create next steps. So, objectives on those red lights and creating next steps on how we're going to start changing that. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the next steps. Ideally, we want to create those next steps on how we're going to get this done, who's doing it, and when we get it done. So, it's creating some accountability and it's creating a game plan to start changing your financials into the right direction. And then after that, it's basically what I'd say rinse and repeat. At the end of the year, we'll do a full recap and then we'll also set new targets and kind of go from there and see where you're at. But that's what it's like working with me, a quick snapshot on what you can expect on a month to month. I'm basically the person that's going to look at all these numbers, give you that nice, crisp summary, make it easy, and say, let's focus on this. That's my goal, is to just really dive into those numbers and get you where you want to go and get what you want out of your business. So there are all different flavors, I would say, of fractional CFOs. I am solely focused on your financials. I'm not really going to focus on company restructures or board meetings or tax strategy. That's really not my world. I just want to work with those growing businesses, alleviate some of that stress and pain and that not knowing of what's going on in your business, and help you get to where you want to go. All right, hope that helps.